Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how you can put a zipper in any kind of fabric. So you can see here that I have just a leftover piece from a different project, and this is what I'm going to use to show you how to work with a zipper. This is also going to be a quick project, so it's going to save you some time. So here is everything that we're going to need for today. So zipper and fabric, of course. And then the basics: fabric scissors, pins, something to measure with, hand gauge in my case, fabric chalk, or whatever else you prefer to mark your fabric with, then some thread that matches either the fabric or the zipper. So I chose black because that way you can see my stitch better when I'm working with it, so you know what to do. And yeah, as I said, the zipper itself, this can be any shape and size that you like, and any color as well. And the fabric here is also pretty flexible. And if you have something that's pretty thin, like my fabric, then I do recommend an inside layer just to make it a little bit more sturdy. And last but not least, we're gonna need our zipper foot for our sewing machine. And this is what it looks like. So it basically just has the one half instead of both. And it's really great for working with zippers. And last but not least, a sewing needle. So the good thing is we can use any zipper that we want. So you can see here smaller, shorter ones that will cut off at the end, or that are complete. Any size, any different shape. So I have here some that have here the little metal piece to keep them from unzipping all the way. But this is not something that you're gonna need in case you don't have this section. We can also kind of work around it and make it work like that by doing a little stitch right there. That way we stop the zipper as well. So you see here I have a shorter version that doesn't have that metal piece. So here we would just do a stitch to kind of stop the zipper from unzipping all the way. So if you'd like to work your zipper into pretty thin fabric, I recommend using some other fabric to make it a little bit sturdier and give it another layer. So in this case, what we would do is basically do this one edge. So we would mark where our zipper stops here on the inside or on my right side. And that's where we would do a straight stitch. And then in the next step, we would add the fabric on the inside. So now that we have this little piece done, what we're gonna do is put it on the ugly side of the fabric, so to speak, or on the back side. And yeah, you just need the length and size of your zipper, not much more than that. That way it's gonna work way more nicely and it's not gonna get stuck or act weird later. And you can of course choose the position where you want this to be depending on where your zipper is supposed to be in the end. And if you're unsure where you want to position your zipper, what you can also do is do it later and mark it on the pretty side of the fabric, and then later decide, or later see where the mark is and then do this step. So we can already begin with the next step. So you see here, I ironed a little piece over it, so it's stuck on there. And yeah, that's the type of fabric that I was using. So I'm gonna turn it the other way around and put the zipper on top of that section. And we just have to check if it's aligned nicely. So make sure you take your time here. And now we can start working on this. So before we get started with the marking, you can also decide if you'd like to put your zipper kind of deeper like this. In that case, you would just fold this section over and that would work just as well. Or you can do it on the edge if that's what you want. You can also do a little bit of extra room in there if you want a nice seam. This really depends on the type of project that you're doing. So here we're also flexible and you can do pretty much whatever you want. You can also push it kind of to the outside like this, and then just stitch over it to keep it in place as well. Okay, so now that we have our zipper where we want it to be, what we're gonna do is measure. And the first mark that we're gonna do is gonna be just above that section where our zipper can't unzip anymore. So if you have a metal piece there or a stitch, a little bit above that is where you wanna mark. There we go. And then in the next step, we're gonna mark where the zipper stands so that we can pretty much put it on the fabric itself. So yeah, this is gonna be our next step. So our next mark would basically be a straight line exactly where the zipper is gonna be. And I'm gonna do that next, and then we can get started. So I did adjust the line a little bit just so it's straight and has a 90-degree angle, and you can see my zipper right next to it. So I just made sure that it's nice and thick so I know which one I'm gonna go with later. And you can also see the little line on the bottom that's forming across. That's where we're gonna stop. And these two lines are basically all you're gonna need. So they're like your coordinates. So how long you go and where you stop as well is all that you need. So in case you don't have anything to stop the zipper here, a step before this would be to do a little straight stitch across from the zipper. This should work pretty fine with any sewing machine, and that way you know where your stopping point is. Then we have to take care how wide you want your stitches to be from the zipper itself. So it can be super wide or it can be right next to the plastic or metal part depending on the zipper. So how much you go away from that is how much of the blue fabric, in my case, it's going to be showing in the end. So you do want to decide what you want to do there, and for that you can of course use your ruler or your hand gauge again to measure. It's going to be symmetrical that way and look really neat in the end, and it's going to be the same on both halves. So just make sure when you're doing these little marks on a triangle that they are the exact same length. So I'm starting from the middle, and I decided to do like 0.7 centimeters or 7 millimeters, and I'm just gonna mark on both sides and connect to the center. And when you do this, you're pretty much ready to get started. So what we're gonna do is start with this longer line, and then we're gonna stop at the little triangle that we just made. So we're basically just adding on the two lines, a little triangle, and then we can get started with the stitches. So before you get to your sewing machine, I would recommend to pin everything in place. So we're gonna unzip our zipper all the way to the end, and then what we're gonna do is put it onto our fabric. But you wanna take care that the zipper is facing away from you. So you wanna see the inside of it basically facing you like this. And then what we're gonna do is basically pin this edge just to make sure that it stays in place when we get to the sewing. It's gonna make your life a lot easier. And just make sure you don't pin it to the other piece of fabric, the other half, because when we do that edge, we're basically gonna flip the whole thing around and it's gonna look really, really nice like this. So we first work on the pinned side of the zipper, and then later we're gonna do the same with the other half. Also make sure to have the same distance throughout the entire stitch, that way your result is gonna be neat and symmetrical. And then we're slowly gonna go to the very last line that we did, the little one. That's actually the one we started with. And when you reach that, that's where you're gonna stop. So we're not gonna go longer than that line right there. And what we're gonna do then is basically turn around the fabric itself. And now we're just gonna make sure that we have enough room here. And what we're gonna do is just cut this leftover fabric on the outside just a little bit. That's gonna help later with folding the other way around. And you're gonna see in a moment why we did that. And now that we've done this section, we can get started with the other one. So in that case, we're basically gonna keep this section going. So we're not gonna pull the needle out. Instead, we're just gonna rotate the fabric like this. And yeah, that way we can get started with the very edge of the zipper, and then I'm gonna show you how to do the rest of it as well. And yeah, that way you're also preventing of going over the same section later. Sometimes that can happen where you just kind of sew across the same section that you don't really want to sew across twice. But we're doing a stitch here just to make sure that it stops exactly where we want it to. And we're gonna do just a couple times there and back. And now when you're done with this little part, you can move the fabric around and basically get to the other side that we haven't worked with. And before I do this, I'm gonna take my fabric scissors once again and do a little cut right there. So basically I'm cutting up to where I marked. So as soon as we do this, we can get started with the other end. And yeah, we're gonna turn it this way. So we basically want the open side of the zipper and the fabric to meet. And then we're also gonna align this nicely. You can optionally stitch it up or just work with it this way and do a stitch right there to finish it up. So after this step, and when you remove everything from your sewing machine, this is what you should have for now. And you can see on the very bottom, that's where we cut with our fabric scissors. You can see what it looks like. So it's pretty nice. It doesn't look weird from the outside. Actually, it helps with this very neat look that we have. So that's where our little mark was, and that's basically where we did all of the cutting, in case it was a little bit unclear or seemed complicated in the last shot. But anyway, you can make it a little bit narrower here or wider. This is completely up to you. As I said, the closer you go to the zipper itself, the less of the fabric of the zipper or around the zipper you're gonna show later. So I tried to iron over it, but you can still see that it's kind of wobbly, so I'm not exactly satisfied with this. So what we're gonna do is pin these two sides again. So you see my pins in the background, and we're just gonna go along this line right here. So basically just follow the zipper itself, but catch the fabric in the stitch as well, and that way we're gonna force it to be straight and not act this weird way. So this depends on the type of fabric that you're using. Sometimes the fabric does this, sometimes it doesn't. So in case it does, I'm gonna show you how that works as well. So we're gonna do the stitches all around. You can of course do just the two sides if you'd like. So here is the end result now that I've stitched over the zipper part, and I also did a seam on the open side here just to show you what that looks like. And yeah, you can see that it looks a lot neater now with the stitch everywhere around the zipper. Here is a little close-up so that you can see what I did and what it looks like. And yeah, for a first try, I think it's pretty neat. So you can see here I went around this little section as well. If you don't want that in your project, you can of course just stop the stitch and start a new one on the other side if you don't want the little horizontal stitch in this case. So I hope you enjoyed, I hope you found it useful. Let me know in the comment section what you think. You can also shoot us a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos, feel free to subscribe, and if you do, don't forget the notification bell. That way you'll get notified every time we post something new. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye!